and was delighted to discover SEALs in recovery when I did. It has been the absolute missing ingredient to what I would now consider just the complete package in a program that I thoroughly enjoy now. There's a brotherhood, there's a level of trust and love that I have, with the members. I mean, I would take a bullet for anyone in the group, even though I would just soon kick one or two of their asses at the same time. It is an environment that I cherish and look forward to further involvement with, and only hope that what I've learned over all these, episodes of my life, I could impart something at some point in time that will helpfully move the needle. And I was hoping that from this podcast, I would steer clear of anything that resembled me rambling about my own story or
No, this is your story,
successes,
brother.
failures. And I wanted it to at least impart one thing that would move the needle, whereby at least one person could see that, yeah, if that dumb shit could end up like that by doing that, then I'll try it too, maybe decades sooner than he did, so I can get there. And that's my hope and prayer.
All right, John Hawley, Seals in Recovery. I believe this is podcast number 6. As advertised, bringing SEALs, retired SEALs on this show that are going to discuss their recovery and essentially go through, life story, how they got interested in the teams, what their childhood looked like, what their siblings looked like, what interaction their parents had with them, and where they grew up. Just Mark One motto, 101 baseline stuff. Prior to going into the Navy, and then we'll get into some stuff about Craig's career, and then what his bottoms, if you want to discuss those, and then what his recovery looks like right now. And I will tell you, Craig has a great story, and his recovery is amazing, and he's been very instrumental in getting SEALs in Recovery where it is now, with a lot of resources he's brought to the table. He's a very bright guy. He has his MBA. He's done a lot in the civilian sector, and I'm privileged to have him on the show. Welcome aboard, Craig.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, John.
So, grew up. How was growing up? Where did you grow up? Parents, siblings? What got you in the Navy? What got you even interested in the teams? When did you hear the word Navy SEAL?
Okay. Well, I grew up in a military family. My father was a career Army officer. He had been a Marine in World War II, fighting the
Wow.
Japanese in the Pacific, wounded at Iwo Jima. And after World War II, he went to college, met my mother at college, and she wanted to marry an Army officer like her father had been. So my father went to OCS and became an Army officer, and had me shortly thereafter. I was born in Denver only because he was stationed there. And 3 years later, my sister was born. And we moved every 2, 3 years. It was not uncommon to go to, several different schools and grammar schools, several different middle schools, several different high schools. San Francisco was always home base. My father was savvy enough to arrange his duty assignments, almost every other assignment, back to the Presidio of San Francisco, which
Not a
was a
bad place.
fabulous, fabulous piece of real estate. It used to be the headquarters of the Sixth Army. And so we had a beautiful house there. And I went to the schools in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And early in the early 60s, my father recognized that everybody was going to end up going to Vietnam at some point. So he volunteered early. He was one of the first advisors in South Vietnam. He went over there as a captain. came back as a major, but while he was over there, my mother has an affair with a guy that she was working at the bank as a bank employee, and she falls in love with a guy at the bank, has an affair while my father's in Vietnam. My father gets back from Vietnam and promptly tells him, I want a divorce. I've found somebody else. And I knew my mother was doing something out of the norm because certain, the behaviors and everything. And I confronted her a couple of different times and lied to me.
How old do you,
So
Craig?
when that
Let me
divorce,
interject a second. How old were you when you detected something? You actually confronted your mom.
6th grade.
Wow, very astute.
Yeah. Yeah. And I knew something was off, and I confronted her 2 different times, and she spun it in a way which, deflected the issue for the time being. And then totally without any warning, uh, the night that my father gets back from Vietnam, uh, greets the kids. She drops the bomb. The whole family is just, in a shit show. And he leaves the house, and I pleaded with my mother not to do it, and it was going to, you know, put my life upside down. She went forward with it, and it was a benchmark in my early life because that was the first time that I experienced what I would consider betrayal. This is an
Hmm.
institution that I held sacred, and when that wasn't there anymore, it was the beginning of several other episodes in my life where, okay, the rules don't matter anymore, you know, and that was to repeat itself a few times as my story will unfold. And my first reactions to all of that was, okay, there's no more rules, and so you're not going to be able to tell me what to do either. So I became rebellious, 6th grade, and went on to the Catholic schools in San Francisco, living with my mother and soon to be her new husband. My father uh, remarries, and he's back at the Presidio with his new wife, and I'm living in San Francisco with my mother and new family, and which he starts. My father gets orders to Germany with his new wife and promptly goes over there, and I'm staying in San Francisco with this new family, and I'm hating life because it doesn't fit for me anymore. I wanted my father's image to be my mentor and paternal figure, and
Hmm.
it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening for me in San Francisco, and I was acting out quite a bit. I mean, I was stealing liquor out of our cabinet. I mean, we always had a bar in our house. And I should probably back up a second here because this is important. And incidentally, uh, being 73 years old and probably a couple of decades older than the average guy in SEAL in recovery. Um,
I
and
think Mike's a little older than you.
yeah, I know that he is, and God bless him. Um, and the way my life unfolded was just one big mosaic. There's like 1,000 different pieces that make the whole picture, and I'm going to forget parts of them because there was no lineal trajectory to my story. There was no career pattern per se, and all of that. And I had set down early in life to amass as many bucket list items as I possibly could. And so it was one checklist after another, amassing these, in order to front load all these life experiences. I was just all over the place for years and years and years. But anyway, important to the story is that we always had a bar in the house, and my father was a good-looking, strapping guy, and just an outright hardworking, diligent, nose to the grindstone guy, but party time was party time, and it was just as important as work. And we had a bar in our house, and it was not uncommon to every single weekend, happy hours, parties at the house, young, good-looking military people,
Hmm.
sleeping over. I'd get up Saturday morning, and the living room rug would be littered with young Army officers and their girlfriends or wives all over our house. And this was normal. Parties on the weekends, um, bar in the house. Anytime somebody came over to the house, it was, what would you like to drink? We've got scotch, bourbon, and I would do the same thing with my friends. They'd come over, I'd open up the refrigerator, and there might be iced tea, water, Kool-Aid, and something, and I'd say, you want rum, vodka, tequila? We've got it, just like my father did. So my perception of success and upper class sort of existence was young, career minded people that drank a lot and partied a lot. That just was part of the metric that I subscribed to from a very early age. And that represented fun, success, good times, camaraderie, that as a social lubricant was integral into the lifestyle that I aspired to. And that registered early. So moving on to where my father goes to Germany with his new wife, and I'm now in the 7th grade Catholic schools in San Francisco, and we're wearing white shirts and ties to school, fighting in the schoolyards. Some of the best education that you could ever hope for. I mean, I was years ahead of my peer groups in the public schools.
Socially.
But yeah, socially,
Yeah, I mean, you've
socially,
exposed to a lot of stuff at your house as far as, what was going on socially within the, the confines of your household with your dad, with the military officers, and you're probably seeing a lot more than your mere 6th or 7th grader. That's the point I'm making.
true. Yeah. Yeah. And then there was a good solid grounding in discipline and education in the Catholic school system, a good balance of fist fighting and, study work. However, I was getting disillusioned living there with, the new family. And 9th grade rolls around, and I want to move to Germany and live with my father. So I sent him a
Where in
letter
Germany was he
basically
stationed?
saying Stuttgart, in a
Ah, yeah, that's
place
where
called
this, yeah, that's where Unit 2 wound up.
well, turns out, yeah, it's Berblingen Panzer
Obligan and
Concern,
Panzer.
which yeah, and this is where he was living. Uh, at the time, it was the 7th Army Support Command or something like that, and
Yeah,
so he lived in officer housing there, and I ended up joining him there and went to high school in Ludwigsburg, Germany. We took the bus from Berblingen to Ludwigsburg,
right.
and you can drink legally. So I'm a sophomore in high school, and I'm in high school in Germany, and all the American kids are drinking, and our parents don't mind because it's legal, and we're all kind of supervised in a way with, we're taking buses to school, and we've got the MPs kind of watching the whole place. One of my best friends is a German guy who teaches me to ski and also teaches me to drink, like a German. And I'm in and out of high school sports, but I really like to ski. Uh, I do well in school. Uh, Drinking is probably just as important as skiing and schoolwork and social life. My girlfriend is the daughter of a Navy admiral,
Hmm.
and summers we were given Eurail passes. Our
Yeah.
parents just, how they get rid of their kids. So here we are, high school kids, and
Hey, just a minute,
as
just
much
so
as
the
six.
civilian populace, your rail passes, you pay one student fee and you can go all over the EU, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Which is just what we did. So our parents would give us Eurail passes, and we'd save up our money. And some of us had part-time jobs and save our allowance money. We'd get together, we'd get on a train, and we'd go to Italy for a week. We'd go to Paris for a week. We'd go skiing, um, spring skiing, or in the Alps, and drink and sleep in pensions, and life was good. And we were
Not a bad
we
life
were
for a kid.
50, 15-year-old adults, and it just seemed everything seemed normal. Um, so after the junior year of high school, we my father's getting ready to retire. He's now a full colonel,
Mhm.
and he wants to retire in Northern California. We go back, and he buys a house on a lagoon. I've got one more year of high school left. So we're in Marin County now, over the Golden Gate Bridge to San Francisco. And he's on the outs with his wife. He's actually fallen in love with the wife of his best friend. He retires from the military. He gets a job as the dean of an engineering college in San Francisco. We've got a house on a lagoon. My last year of high school, the school was split scheduled, where
Mhm.
I went to school from 7:30 in the morning till 11:30 in the morning. That was my high school career. And we lived on a lagoon with a boat out back, so I
Mm.
water skied every day of the year for the entire time that we were there. I played high school soccer, and I played high school basketball, and I played high school football for a while. This is different high schools at different times, but I always gravitated towards skiing and individual sports. It
No
just was
telemark
my
skiing?
no. I mean, it never was on the
Joking.
radar. It
You
just
should have went to
wasn't.
SEAL Team 2.
And yeah, well, I did.
Mhm.
um, so I thought you'd been asking more questions to keep me focused here.
Oh, I mean, I'm enjoying the story. I certainly have questions. Back rewinding the tape here. I just didn't want to interrupt your mojo. So it's very interesting what you talk about with rules growing up. So, the new clinical term is lack of boundaries, and that's what my shrink tells me. And it's very easy to tie back my alcohol problems with my lack of boundaries growing up. There's a direct correlation what I thought was okay and wasn't okay. And I've shared my story in our Seals and Recovery. No, it's fascinating. I didn't want to interrupt you, but the whole dynamic about back and forth with mom and dad is very interesting too. The new family to me is very interesting too. What the tolerances were for alcohol in your household is interesting to me because later in life, I found out my mother was an alcoholic and drinking was okay in our house because she was a drunk, and I loved her. She did the best she could. But my point is it's very easy to frame some of this stuff and look back and say, well, you know what? Some of this stuff is starting to make sense about, how I acted out, how I became an alcoholic, and what I thought was okay with the lack of rules slash now calling it boundaries growing up. I mean,
Mm,
essentially, I mean, I've been to Europe. I mean, I've deployed there. I've been there several times. The whole European adolescence and teenage thing is so different. I mean, those people in their teens, late teens, prior to graduating high school, will go to Spain and work in the bars for the summer, and then go back to school in high school. I mean, it's a whole different metric and trust level. I don't know what goes on now with young people, but when I was stationed in Rota, Spain, and when I was in Germany, and all of the other stuff is like there's people from abroad all over the place in their 17, 18 years old before college just working in other countries during the summer, which doesn't happen a lot in the United States. And as far as my knowledge, my kids didn't do it, but it's a whole different demographic in the EU.
hmm you mentioned the boundaries, and
Yeah.
it was for me it was a good point. For me, it was a combination of one, the freedoms that I was given.
Yep.
I will forever I will forever be grateful to my parents for giving me the freedoms that they did, even from a very early age. Um, they were strict disciplinarians as far as school time, studying, and certain behavioral, mandates. However, the latitude to go and come as I pleased, and the trusting me to go, to travel at an early age, and I had the run of San Francisco from a very early age, and I appreciated that. I mean, I had a sense of freedom where the world was my oyster, and and that gave me a foundation that I have today, that
Mhm.
I could
And you
go
have a free
anywhere,
spirit.
and do it.
You're a very young
Yeah.
70-something-year-old. I mean, you act younger and have more input in our seals and recovers than some of the younger guys. And, to me, you don't feel like you're stuck. You're still doing stuff. You're just in Peru. You're sailing. You're exploring new things. Your sobriety is fantastic, but you're very, very youthful with your mindset and, your physical fitness and your goals. And that's a great thing for me to see, being 61 years old, that you're still moving, doing stuff, that, life, it goes on, and you could be productive in so many ways. It's definitely a breath of fresh air.
Well, thanks for that.
It's
I
true.
will say that uh, I will say that only in sobriety was any of that possible. I was on a collision course, and I almost died a couple of times, as a direct result of alcoholism, and not to mention the danger zones that I was put in with driving, mountain climbing, under the influence. I mean, there was a litany of activities that I did under the influence of alcohol that, brushes with death just way too many times. Um, there was periods of time where I was, overweight and dysfunctional, and I mean, just a hot mess while drinking, and on, binges for me would last months at a time. And so it's only in sobriety that any of that's possible, and
Well,
good genes, I guess.
I
Now,
can't imagine that in totality, because we can get into this, hopefully, is you were in the Army before you went to the SEAL team?
yeah, I was,
Yeah, let's
yeah,
hear
and
about, well,
oh,
was it natural attraction to the Army because you're old man and the lineage in your family? Was that the deciding factor by you, enlisting? And then tell me about your Army career, your drinking in the Army, and then saying, "Fuck it,
you bet,
I'm gonna go to the fucking buds."
yeah, you bet. So this is how that went down. I'm a senior in high school. I'm water skiing every day. We're drinking pretty regularly. Pot is a thing. This is 1969, Northern California, and it's liberal, and the hippies are in San Francisco, and the wealthy pot smoking young executives are all in Marin County, where we lived.
Mhm.
And the plan was that, I've got like a 3.2 GPA in high school. My study habits are so, and I'm not really ready for college, according to my father. Plus, he wants me to, besides getting a little more maturity, he wants me to pay for college with a GI Bill.
Mhm.
So his trajectory for me was volunteer for the draft. Incidentally, the draft, Vietnam was cooking, and the draft was in place. So if you didn't have a deferment of some sort, you were going to get drafted sooner or later. This was even before the lottery number thing. And so the plan was that I was going to volunteer for the draft, which meant that you had a 2-year commitment, and
Mhm.
you could pick the time that you went in.
Oh,
So
really?
I graduate. Yeah, you could, just pick your date. So I'm 17 years old. I'm out of high school, and I have volunteered for the draft. And my father assures me that he will contact his friends that are still active duty in administration, and they're going to arrange for my orders to be cut, where I'm going to be a clerk typist out of basic training afterwards, and he's going to get me reassigned back to Germany and work in an office with his friends that are still active duty in Berblingen, Germany. So this is a plan that works for me. I get to go back to Germany and ski.
And drink.
I'm gonna and drink, and I'm going to skirt the the worst part of the Army military shit show that was Vietnam. And so I go in, and I'm 17 years old. I'm drafted into the Army on schedule, and this is like August of 1969.
Boot camp. What boot camp and what MOS?
It was the boot camp was well, basic training is Fort Lewis, Washington,
Gotcha.
which was a big, big beautiful place,
Oh
a lot
yeah.
of pine trees, and and our basic training company was comprised of just about almost exclusively draftees from Northern California, from Sioux City, Iowa, and then one day a bus pulls up, and off come all these raggedy ass looking guys with missing teeth and tattoos, and they had let these guys out of prison with the understanding that they were going to go to Vietnam. so that's us. And basic training is like 8 weeks long. Then you wait to get your MOS, and they're handing out the assignments. And I get my orders to go to Fort Ord, California for advanced infantry training. And I said that's a mistake. And I called my father, walked over to the payphone there at the company area, called my father, and he said, "Yeah, I meant to tell you there's been a screw up. The guy that was supposed to pull your orders and get you on the roster to go to the clerk typist school got cold feet, and it was going to be too much out of the ordinary. In other words, everybody on these rosters was already pre-designated where they're supposed to go, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody was afraid to pull my name off the list and put it somewhere else. And so and I said, well, this wasn't the
Off
deal.
the
I quit.
AIT you go.
Yeah, it's like, fuck this. That was not the deal. And he goes, there's nothing I can do at this point. Maybe later we can tweak your orders. Yeah, okay, whatever. So if we're going to do this, then we're going to do it. So now I'm all in. It's like,
Shit, I'm
pretty
going.
resilient, and everybody else is too. So uh, let's do it. So we go to AIT, Fort Ord, California. And it's another 8 weeks of running around the sand dunes, getting ready to go to Vietnam. And 8 weeks later, then we had a Christmas break. I go to San Francisco. We're hanging around with my father and his new wife, who is married the wife of his best friend,
Oh wow.
a woman that I kind of a woman that I kind of grew up with intermittently. He was a dentist in the Army and a happy hour attendee with everybody else back in that circle of friends, and it was just a match made in heaven. My father, I mean, they were the lives of the party anyway, and that was an evolution that they went through. And so anyway, he's I'm happy for him, I'm happy for her, and I like that arrangement. So I'm getting ready, and she's going to drive me to the airport, Travis Air Force Base, and I'm going to get on the plane and go to Vietnam. And I'm putting on my uniform, and I played this record. It was the Easy Rider soundtrack, and I played Kyrie Lay song, and I couldn't help myself. That this is a fucking movie moment right here. I'm putting on my uniform to go to Vietnam, and Kyrie Lay song is playing in the background.
I have a
Just an
question. Did you
aside.
after your AIT, you get assigned to where, and did you guys do any ULT unit level training, or did you go on the plane, get over there, and then you did kind of a workup over there? What did that look like as far as mechanics of getting in country and getting to go to do your job?
Yeah, good question. back then, you didn't know where you were going to be assigned. You were going to go over there with an 11 Bravo MOS,
And you were filling
infantry,
a
basic infantry.
right. I got it.
Yeah, and we're flying into Long Bin, which is the big airport there outside of Saigon, and there you were going to get your duty assignments, and depending on the needs of the military. So you get there, and you're in this holding reception area in these barracks for a while until they get you on a roster and they send you anywhere in. It could be anywhere in
So what
country.
was that, 69 or 70?
This is 69 still.
Yeah, so
No,
that's it.
uh, hang on a second. It was right after New Year's, 1970. So it was the
So the
first,
biggest loss of
literally
life
the
the biggest loss of life in US, I believe this to be true, was 68, 69. The casualties went up, and I was listening to a podcast, and they were doing exactly, I believe, what you're saying, where they were just backfilling, platoons or assault teams, whatever they called it back then, with new meat and plugging people in.
well, I suppose. I mean, over the 10-year period, there was something like 56,000
Right.
KIAs.
Yeah.
Um, the Tet Offensive, the big one, was
68.
68, where there was a hell of a lot of activity. So it was January of 70 that I got there. You had to be 18 to go to Vietnam, and I just turned 18 in October. So it was right after Christmas and New Year's. I'm getting on the plane and going there. So we go to Long Bin, and I mean, I get off the plane in Vietnam, and it's like, wow, look at this place. I mean, forget the heat and the insanity, but it was here. Here is no rules heaven. I mean, the first thing you notice is there's a million things going on. Everybody's young, everything's disorganized, and everybody's got a gun. And there's booze and weed and
Seems good to
drugs
me.
everywhere. It's like, fuck me. It doesn't get any better than this. I don't care where they send me. This is going to be fun. So I'm caught up in the new adventure cycle now, and they tell us that you're restricted to base. You can't go into Saigon, but nobody was paying attention, so we all went into Saigon and partied there for a couple of days, and then got back to the barracks. And probably within a few days afterwards, they're calling us into these briefing rooms, and they're giving everybody their assignment. My assignment was the first air cav out of Ankh, Camp Radcliffe, in this,
Apocalypse Now.
yeah, near the Central Highlands. The famed unit that was fought in the Ao Drang. They made the movie We Were Soldiers.
Yeah, amazing.
Hal Moore.
Yeah, Mel Gibson. If you haven't seen it, go see it or rent it.
So I'm a grunt with the first air cav, and it was probably the best place I could be at that moment, because it was a storied unit. Everybody there was an absolute fucking gunslinger. Half the unit were airborne, the other half were infantry, and we were flying in and out of places. We were doing patrols in the AO, search and destroys, flying most of the places that we went, and then spend 3 to 4 weeks in the bush and then back to the base camp. And this was a cycle that repeated itself over and over. And it was absolute criminal activity. The part that I didn't like was the search and destroy missions. 7 months in country, I catch a frag in the left leg and opens up my thigh. My best friend is killed. We get medevaced out of there to Camp Radcliffe, and I'm in surgery getting the leg stitched up again. My best friend's dead. I come out of surgery and I go into the bunker. It was mail call, and my parents or my father is divorcing the wife of his best friend.
That's marriage 3 for him?
This is marriage 3 for him.
Yeah.
I'm opening up my mail. I hadn't had a mail call in a while. My girlfriend, the admiral's daughter, uh, is sending me a Dear John letter, and my best friend has been killed, and I've got stitches in my leg, and it was overwhelming to the extent where the sun's going down over South Vietnam, and here's another movie moment. And I said to myself then and there, I will never ever feel like this again. So nothing else is going to get to me like this. This is an emotion that I will shelve permanently. And it was another kind of betrayal, if you will, and
Hmm.
sadness and loss. And I shelved it, and I went right into our club, such as it was, and drank myself stupid. And I had some convalescent time, and I wasn't going to be able to patrol for a while for lack of infection
Mobility.
and put in mobility. So I asked, could I fly door gunner? And I got a spot. And so I was now I'm on the starboard side of the Huey UH-1s, sitting behind an M60 machine gun, and we're flying combat assault missions out of Camp Radcliffe. And now I'm getting to see the country on a daily basis from the air. And now I'm loving life, you know. And we've got pilots that are 20 years old, many of whom were from the deep south. Some of them have been moonshine runners with muscle cars, and when they're partying, they're wearing the cavalry hats, and there was no distinction between enlisted officers, pilots, grunts, everything. The first air cav was one big party family.
I have a question,
And
Craig. Was Had you used drinking prior to that to detach yourself from your feelings prior to the horrible day in Vietnam, where divorce on your father's side, you're banged up because you got fragged, then you lost your girl, got the Dear John, and drinking was a mechanism. Had you used that to detach yourself prior to that bottom that you felt that day, and had it caused any problems?
well, it's a good question. And drinking was still fun for me. And it did represent a social lubricant, um, escapism perhaps, but also to enhance experiences. And it wasn't really a problem per se. I mean, in actuality, it was, because it reduced dramatically a lot of my capabilities. But at the time, it was just another a way to, enjoy myself and party to excess on a regular basis. Um, I mean, there was mission after mission after mission where I was so hungover. I had left my rifle on the LZ, and got on the helicopter one day. I mean, this is how I rolled sometimes. But drowning it out, drowning out sorrows, no, because the mantra back then was, it don't mean nothing. And this is something that you'll hear, maybe if you hear more Vietnam stories, is it was something that the guys in the bush adapted. That the expression was, it don't mean nothing. In other words, no matter what happens, it doesn't fucking matter anymore, because this is this is this is zombie land. You know, this place is going nowhere. We're going nowhere. As exciting as it was clear to all of us we're in the wrong place doing the wrong thing.
Mm.
But there was no getting out, and so you had to get up and hit a lick every day. And there was these bigger than life characters that flew these helicopters that just made it all worthwhile. So what happened shortly thereafter was I took an in-country R&R, and I went to Saigon, and my father had told me, you need to go see this full bird colonel in MACV Military Assistance Command Vietnam headquarters in Saigon. And I went to see him, and he said, "How's it going?" "Good. Anything I can do for you?" "Yeah, make me E5." "Done." He goes, "What about duty assignments? You want to change?" I go, "Well, what do you got?" I don't think so. "What do you got?" He goes, "Where are you staying?" "Well, I'm in this hotel downtown." "Okay, come see me tomorrow." Partied all night, went back to see him the next day. He said, "I've got a spot that you might be interested in. You can be the radio operator and the gopher for the senior Phoenix advisor, Quang Tin province." Now, the
So for
Phoenix
civilians who
program,
don't know about the Phoenix program, it was it was essentially an operation to assassinate folks in the chain of command of the Viet Cong. And Craig could go into a little more about it. Essentially, it was a storied program in Vietnam that, of course, went awry like everything else like that, when people were targeting people for vendettas and everything else. But it was very, very effective, as you read from the beginning, as far as the operation. And Navy SEALs were involved in it.
Mhm. It were, and I'll elaborate in just a second. So he explains to me that one of his best friends is a full colonel out of Da Nang, and he was the core advisor to the Phoenix program, and I was to go up to meet him for the brief on the Phoenix program, and then I was going to take a helicopter down to Tam Key province, or Tam Key city in Quang Tin province, to get hooked up with a major who was the province advisor for Phoenix. So not knowing a whole lot about it, I fly into Da Nang. I'm sitting in this nice office, and this bald-headed spook comes out. It's a military intelligence full colonel, and there's Time magazine sitting at on the coffee table, and on the cover of Time, Newsweek or Time, whatever it was this expose on the Phoenix program. He goes, "This is who you're working for now." And I, okay, whatever. So the Phoenix program was military intelligence coupled with the CIA, coupled with different networks in the uh, Vietnamese system, the National Police Field Forces, the province reconnaissance units, and the targets were the Viet Cong infrastructure. The Viet Cong infrastructure were comprised of the proselytizing individuals, the finance guys, the the money and the brains behind the Viet Cong, and the Peace program would compile, using intel, would compile dossiers on high value targets within the Viet Cong infrastructure and actionable intel, launch missions to kill, capture, or get them to Chuhoi, which is give up, open arms, repatriate to the south.
Mhm.
And so my job uh, was to work in an office with the province senior advisor until an actionable mission could be launched. And yes, CIA was in our office on a regular basis. Navy SEALs would come through looking for things to do, ops to launch. And we were working in conjunction with the Vietnamese field forces. And there I was. Now I'm an E5, um, almost 19 years old, and I've got the best job in the world. We're living at a luxurious base camp in an air conditioned office, and I get to go to the field uh, 3 or 4 days out of the week on in and out ops where I'm on the radio coordinating some air support and mostly just communicating with the other ground forces on behalf of
What
my
were you doing?
major.
Communicating with a 77? What you used for comms back then?
Prick 77, Prick 25. I never
Yep.
really knew the difference between the two. They seemed they weighed about the same, but
Yeah.
I carried
EA
the Prick.
5590 batteries. Hello.
Yeah. I mean, the fucked up thing about them was the antenna. I mean, I was
Yeah, yeah.
always getting hung up on that. But yeah, and we would operate with armored divisions. We had artillery support. Fast movers would come in and clear areas. You know, if it got weird, danger close, and we would fly in or ride in to an area, conduct the op, and you know, I would usually get arm's distance from any shooting, as was my uh, Phoenix advisor, and
Hmm.
but we saw the war in living color, you know, from arm's distance, with from the air, from the tanks, from the APCs, from the jeeps, and in base camp, I had my own jeep. I carried a sidearm. Wore Hawaiian shirts on the weekend. Drove out to the beach. I mean, it was just unfucking real to have that kind of uh, a war experience, I guess, to where we were doing something really sophisticated. I thought, um, keeping our keeping our beaks wet as far as the actual war that was going on, and yet catapulted from you know sleeping in the mud to sleeping in a hooch with maid service.
Hmm.
And my time was winding down, and as an aside, between the first Cav and the operations we conducted with the Phoenix program, I worked for two different units that were extremely generous to the point of being ludicrous with awards and decorations. So when I left Vietnam, I had more ribbons than my father had amassed in 22 years in the military, including World War II and Vietnam. None of which, I will add with enthusiasm, were deserved. And I say this only because when I graduated Buds and had it and the group saw me and the instructors saw me for the first time with an actual uniform on, it what the fuck, Chuck. So Vietnam is over, and now I have to go to college. It's 1971, and my father recommends that I not go to a University of California school. um, let me back up for a second. I get back from Vietnam. My father picks me up on a limousine in Travis Air Force Base. We promptly ETS'd, uh, took my uniform off, got into the limousine, and drove to his beautiful house in Marin County, and was sitting by the pool that afternoon. 24 hours before that, I was in Vietnam, and
Hmm.
this is weird. And so I'm living the life of luxury, and I'm drinking all the time. Not to drown the sorrows, not to bury anything. It's just because I could.
Right.
Just because I could. They're waiting on me hand and foot. I'm eating and drinking whatever I want by the pool. I saved enough money from Vietnam. Also working the black market. I was selling refrigerators and fans to the South Vietnamese, pocketing the money and sending money home on a regular basis. I mean,
Well,
I
you
had
were an
thousands
entrepreneur.
and thousands of dollars. Yeah. And I mean, the real money was selling greenbacks, uh, but it was discouraged because that money ended up in the hands of the Viet Cong. But
Right.
so I was, I had I had a vehicle paid for when I got off the airplane, and I had literally had college paid for in addition to the GI Bill. My father suggested I go to school in Utah, uh, to Brigham Young University, because he and my mother had gone there as non-Mormons,
As
because it was
non-Mormons.
just as non-Mormons, and I was a non-Mormon. But it was the place where, I mean, they had strict rules about behaviors, and it was a great school. It was a place I could ski all the time, and it just seemed like a good idea. And so I bought into that. signed a contract that I wouldn't drink, smoke, sleep with my girlfriend, light steal. And that didn't last very long. But I struggled through their rules and that culture for 3 years, and then finally transferred to the University of Utah when the administration essentially said, we've been giving you lots of chances. It's going to be like living in a fishbowl. Are you sure you're in the right place? And I said, yeah, I agree. This is just not fair. So I went to the University of Utah and finished up there with a bachelor's degree in English and a bachelor's science degree in economics.
Mm-hmm.
And with about a 3.0 GPA, I was drinking a lot the last year at the University of Utah, because now there's no rules, nobody watching, and frankly, I don't know what I'm going to do. A lot of the bureaucratic kind of frustrations were catching up with me at that point in time. It's almost like I'd been institutionalized for a little too long for my liking, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. If I was going to get into a law school, it was going to be a half-assed law school, and it was going to be another 3 years, and I didn't know where the money was going to come from. And so I just didn't know what I was going to do, and I have got about 3 or 4 more months before graduation. I'm tending bar at a ski resort while I'm going to classes in the morning. And one particular day, on the way up the canyon outside of Salt Lake City up to Snowbird, my Jeep takes a shit, and I'm running late for work, so I stick my thumb out, and I get picked up by a guy in a like a nondescript American car, and he's driving me up there, and I looked over my shoulder, and on his briefcase it says SEAL Team 2, and I said, "Are you in the SEAL teams?" He was wearing civvies at the time, and he says, "Yeah, I'm on recruiting duty in Salt Lake City," and this guy was
Who
just
was it?
Herschel Davis.
Oh yeah,
It,
the mustache.
yeah, and if
God bless him.
anybody that knows that generation knows Herschel Davis. I mean, he
One
just
of my Buds instructors was at Buds when I was there.
just a bigger than life character, and to speed things along, he wants to hook up, and I told him that I had seen SEALs in. Oh, incidentally, my last year of high school, my girlfriend, whose father was a rear admiral, they moved back from Germany, and he becomes the commanding officer of the Naval Amphibious Base Coronado.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm in my last year of high school, I go down to see her, and we stayed at his house in Coronado. And he's running the amphib base, and we went to the pool one day, and here's all the SEALs training, and then we see him on the beach, and I asked her, I said, "Who are those guys?" "Oh, those are the SEALs. Daddy says they're really neat." I
That's
said, "I
kind.
guess. Yeah, it's like, look at these fucking guys." So that was the first image I saw. Then I would see him in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so let's see, where was I? Oh,
With Herschel getting recruited.
so yeah, yeah. So Herschel goes, "Stop by and see me at the office," and we just hit it off. And his energy was infectious. And he says, "Listen, there's a buddy of mine coming into town. You really need to meet him. He's on recruiting duty out in Coronado for Buds, and he's going to be out here visiting me." And Herschel flew his own plane, and he said, "We're going to. He's going to. My buddy's going to give a talk at one of these elementary schools or high schools in Utah, and I'm going to fly him down there, and we're both going to, we're going to double team this, you know, public service thing."
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "But you got to meet him." And this is Frank Thornton.
Oh, geez.
Frank Thornton another
Medal of Honor winner.
Vietnam. No, that's Mike Thornton.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Two Thorntons. Mike Thornton. Frank Thornton was Hollywood handsome movie star, often referred to as the most often decorated SEAL in Vietnam. 3 tours, operated independent as a E6 with the Vietnamese SEALs. But anyway, so he flies out to see Herschel, and I cannot believe how much fun I'm having with these two guys. We stayed at Herschel's house. I didn't even go home for 3 days. We're drinking, doing yard work for Herschel. We're running around. We're going to bars at night. The women are attracted to them like fucking flypaper. And I'm saying, I've got to get some of this. So I said, listen, okay, where does the rubber meet the road here? I want to do buds. It's not like I want to join the Navy or I want to like make a career, but I want to go to buds. How do I get there? So this is where my story is probably unique to most others, because here's how it worked. As an other service veteran, it's called an OSVET, I could enlist in the Navy for 2 years and keep my rank from the Army if I could fill a billet that the Navy needed. Herschel and Frank Thornton, talking to the detailer at Buds, said, we can set this up for you. You can come in, you go to a 2 or 3 week Navy orientation program and go right to Buds, keep your E5 rank, and because of your Vietnam time and the weapons, that you use, and we need gunner's mates. You'll be an E5 gunner's mate. You'll be in the Navy. You'll go to an orientation, and then you'll have orders cut to Buds.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to go to OCS, if you make it through Buds and you want to stay in the teams, you can go to OCS. If you don't make it through Buds, you've only got a short amount of time to where you can get out of the Navy again. And if you want to re-enlist and stay, you can do all of that. So this was a perfect scenario for me. This is like a no risk, and I said, okay, let's do it. I signed up in Salt Lake City. I was on a plane to San Diego shortly thereafter, and I went through the 3-week orientation. I learned, the thumbnail sketch of how the Navy worked, and I showed up at Buds, overweight, hungover. Here I am. Let's do this. I classed up with class 86, not the one I graduated from, class 86, a winter class, and had the same bud experience as everybody else, except for I had 2 weeks to go. All the people, you can jump in with any particular questions, but mostly it was buds. Well, back up a little bit. I lived on a sailboat the last 3 months.
Where in
I was at
Glorieta Bay?
Buds. Yeah, Glorieta Bay. No, just south of there was a little Navy marina, about a mile south of Buds, and some retired Navy captain kept a big trimaran sailboat there. And I just ran into him one day and asked him, could I live aboard if I did maintenance on the boat? And he said, yeah, sure thing. So and I had a local girlfriend in Coronado. So life was good. Frank Thornton was there as the 3rd phase diving officer now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm partying with him every weekend. And in Vietnam Legend SEALs, and most of my friends were officers. And I mean, there was nothing super hard for me. It's you cannot. I mean, quitting is just that never ever was going to be a factor. I will
Understood.
put up with this bullshit. Yeah, I will put up with this bullshit. I mean, and whatever you dish out. But I got an ear infection. Third phase used to be the diving phase. And I got an ear infection the last 2 weeks of training. I've already got orders to SEAL Team 1. Back in those days, it was 3 underwater demolition teams and 2 SEAL
Right.
teams. And it was not easy to get to a SEAL team. But I got orders to SEAL Team 1, maybe because I was a Vietnam vet, and maybe it was because I was one of the few people in our class that shot expert rifle and pistol. But anyway, so um, the the third phase officer came to me and said, "You've missed too many Emerson dives. We can't check all these boxes. You've got a choice. You can get one of the instructors to volunteer to take you out there and get all these dives logged. Compass swims or whatever they
Yeah.
were, or you can wait till the next class." So I asked Frank Thornton, I go, what would you do? What do you think I should do? He goes, well, it's up to you. Take a vacation. Fuck it. I said, all right. So I said, okay, I'll take the next class. And I got to work in the dive locker. We would take the Zodiac out with the instructors and dive for abalone. I was doing PT, running the beach. I got twice as strong as I ever was in my other class, but with that recoup time. And I I partied and did some diving with the instructors and had a great time. Got a suntan and picked up class 87. Towards the very end of third phase and graduated with them. At this time, Mike Thornton is the proctor of class 87. Mike Thornton is now the Medal of Honor winner. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
not to be confused with Frank Thornton.
Mm-hmm.
And that now I want to go to the East Coast. Um, I had been in Coronado like long enough, and I really didn't want to stay longer. And I kept hearing about the East Coast teams. I said, Mike Thornton, can you change my orders from CL1 so I can go to Virginia Beach? He goes, let me see what I can do. He says, yeah, I can get you to the East Coast, but it's going to be UDT 21. I said, okay. I mean, diving's my thing anyway, so let's do that. So now I've got orders to UDT 21, which I'm happy with. SEAL teams were running around the woods playing war games because Vietnam is over and there's nothing else going on. So, I'm totally okay with diving. Now, here's something that a lot of you guys don't know is there were 2 classes out of BUDS, class 87 and class 88,
Mm-hmm.
were the only ones that went to jump school in Lakehurst, New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
whereas everyone prior to
Went to
us
Fort Benning.
went to Fort Benning, and then even after that, way up until they started outsourcing it, the Navy wanted to have their own jump school,
Right.
so they had a pilot program where they had an E7 Navy guy, and I think a gunny sergeant from the Marines running this program. None of whom were team guys, and there was a paraloft there. So we're at the Lakehurst, New Jersey, this big military base, and we were assigned to where the Marine Corps detachment was stationed. They put us up in the barracks there, and we had this half-assed airborne school where it was just shits and giggles the entire time. We jumped out of Huey's. We got 10 jumps in with a quickness. Everybody had their gold
Right.
wings because all we did was take them up and jump out, take them up and jump out, and and partying and packing our chutes, uh, j- just just stuffing them in. It's like I hope I don't have to jump this chute. This thing is never gonna fucking open.
So you're just trash packing.
Just trash packing, and we wrecked their clubs. We took their girlfriends. They had a sacred bell that you're never supposed to ring. We didn't ring the bell. We stole the bell. and
With
we wrecked the
passion.
place. Yeah, we just fucking wrecked the place.
Well, is
And
drinking a problem at all now, or it's still you just doing your thing? It hasn't been a problem yet.
doing my thing. I mean, I'm a super athlete. I'm hitting on all 8 cylinders. I'm drinking all night and I'm doing my thing all day. So it's not a problem, not yet. And so I get out of jump school and I've got a little free time before I go back to before I have to check into UDT 21. So I get on a Space A flight and I go back to Coronado to see my girlfriend and party with some guys from Class 88. Uh, One of my best friends there was the class leader of 88. He had bought a house in San Diego and it was party central. So I've got some free time and I cut my foot open on a shell on the beach or something. We ran the beach one morning and I put a big gash in my foot. So it's time to fly back to Norfolk and I can't get a shoe on because I got my foot all bandaged up. So I just put flip flops on. Now I can't find my hat. So I've got my uniform on, summer whites, flip flops, and no hat. And I get on the airplane like that. And I'm called aside by some commander saying, "What the fuck is this? You know, you're you look like shit. You don't have a hat. You're wearing flip flops. Got a band." So this is how I arrive at Norfolk. We're greeted at the airport by one of our guys in our class, uh, another famous SEAL named Billy Burbank. His Billy Burbank went through training with me, but his father was a Vietnam SEAL. And we stayed at his house while we all checked into UDT 21. And that was my first assignment with the teams. And the very first thing we did, I platooned up and went to the North Atlantic for 3 months all over Europe on NATO exercises. And I liked it. I was, you know, without tooting my own horn, I mean, I was a real player. And, I threw myself into it. I was leading PT on the ship. I was solving all the problems, when we were doing our, different training operations. And the OIC really liked me, as did everybody else. But I didn't want to spend any more time in UDT. I realized that their mission was one cruise after another, and I happened to get a short one going to an area of the world that I liked. But beyond that, it was going to be something like med cruises or Caribbean cruises, and I wasn't down with that. And I had met there were two party places back in Virginia Beach at that time. There was the Fraternal Order UDT SEAL Club, which was after hours. I think it's long been closed, but back then they stayed open until the wee hours of the morning, and all the girls that left the nightclubs would show up there at night. So this was a great place to drink, and also a place that burned down was at Chicks Beach. It was called the Casino,
Yeah, I've heard about it.
and that was also just a fabulous place to party. So I'm in there partying, and one night, and Mike Thornton is now assigned to SEAL Team 2. He's drinking with Marcinko. And I told Mike, I go, "Can you get me out of UDT 21 over to SEAL Team 2?" And he said, "Done deal," and introduced me to Marcinko. And a week later, I'm over at SEAL Team 2. And Marcinko is the commanding officer. Mike Thornton is there. And they're already talking about, uh, what comes next, which ended up being Red Cell and ultimately SEAL Team 6. And we got into another platoon, and we'd gone to Puerto Rico, AP Hill. I went to second class dive school, and my time in the Navy is almost running out, and I've got to make a decision. Do I want to stay in and do this, or do I want to, move on? I've got 4 years, in the Navy at this point, and I want to be a deep sea diver. I need more money. I need to check one more box. And I've now got a girlfriend in Virginia Beach who's the daughter of a retired Navy captain. And she's basically saying, if you get a, my father doesn't want me to be, to marry a SEAL, but if you want to be a commercial diver, he'll pay for it. It's a $4,000 in 1980s money.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you promise to, when you get that out of your system, that you get a real job. And this was a scenario made in heaven. Okay. So I unceremoniously leave the teams. Let me say this much. I loved Navy SEALs, and to this day, it defines me when times get tough, and whenever there's a question of can I get this done or not. And some of the finest men in the world, but at that particular point in time, with no war, with deployments consisting of nothing but training exercises, and no reenlistment bonuses, cash wise to speak of, low income, and the fact that it was going to be spinning wheels too much, I sadly left the SEAL teams to go on to the next adventure, which is going to be as a commercial diver, with the understanding that once it got out of my system, uh, that I was going to join, the workforce somewhere else to be determined.
So it's very
So I'm
interesting that
married.
you say that, Craig, that what your time in as a SEAL UDT guy, you think back of it. I tell people that have gone there and not made it, guys who have made it through. I said, as soon as you sign into BUDS, cross that quarterdeck and exposed to the atmosphere of BUDS and spec war, your life is changed, because you can't even explain the culture that exists, good, bad, or indifferent, within the SEAL community. Even if you were at BUDS for 5 days, it's just a different way of life. It's a different regime. I mean, it's just it's very odd and it's very peculiar. But as soon as you've checked in and been exposed to back when we got our greens and Mark V dive socks, now they get camis and whatever they get in their running boots or shoes. I mean, you people think about the rest of their lives. I mean, I'm still friends with a couple guys who quit that I've ran into over the years, and they still talk about BUDS. It's very unique experience in life for people who have experienced any part of BUDS training and then either not made it through or graduated and gone and deployed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It, it's true. I mean, there's just no doubt in my mind that the finest men in the world uh, are Navy SEALs. The In retrospect, the saving grace for me, as I don't have that much remorse about leaving the teams when I did, because as a practical matter, uh, I would have had to wait a decade to shoot somebody in uh, in Grenada, only if I was a member of SEAL Team 6,
Mm-hmm.
and then waited another 6 or 7 years to shoot somebody in Panama, only if I was a member of SEAL Team 4 or whoever pulled that off, and then a little bit in the Mid East. And it wasn't until like literally 9/11 did things ramp up to the extent where you know being a SEAL was really a thing. And so that would have been an
Well,
entire
that's unfair because there was a lot of other stuff. Somalia happened, Bosnia happened. There was some stuff in between, besides the big shooting war, that SEALs did a lot of stuff that nobody will ever know about.
yeah. And yeah, my bad. It's true. Um, this is at least how I justify it to myself that I
And that's fine. I'm
would
just
have had
being
to
fair
wait.
to the guys that weren't part of Quad, or a lot of stuff still is getting done. It's not advertised, as you know.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's all good. Um, so what happened next was I got married, and in Virginia Beach, my idea, it was right after I left the teams, and my idea was to get married on a boat at sunrise. So we rented a pontoon party boat out of one of the little marinas. We were living on Willoughby Spit. I had
Oh
a
yes,
cottage on the beach.
the
Yeah,
little peninsula that was created in a hurricane.
yeah. And back in those days, they had these big, funky houses right on the ocean, and I lived in a cottage next to one of those big, funky
Yeah,
houses.
they're still there.
Yeah, and I that was very cool. So there was a marina near there that we rented the boat out of. So we filled it with mostly uh, career Navy officers on my wife's side, her family, at their insistence. And I told uh, the some of the SEALs that wanted to go. There's only so many places on the boat that that there just wasn't any room, and so I'm thinking, damn, I don't even get to have a lot of frogmen come to this wedding. So we got married on the boat at sunrise, and right after the ceremony, out of the out of the haze, I see these boats, high speed tracking towards us, and I'm thinking, what's wrong with this picture? And they're getting closer, and they're getting closer, they're getting closer, and there's like four small boats at a high rate of speed coming right at us. And then they start circling, and then now I can see better. They're popping smoke, and they're circling the wedding craft, and they're yelling, and they're dressed as pirates, and they've got sabers, and they're shooting M80s with bows and arrows. And I get it. I see who they are. These are guys from SEAL Team 2 dressed as pirates that are attacking my wedding craft. They board the boat. They throw me in the ocean. They grab my girl. She fights them off. And then I get back on the boat. They tie up the little boats, and the champagnes gets uncorked. The music turns up, and here's all, and everybody's flabbergasted. We've been attacked by and boarded by pirates. And this is how the Navy SEALs that I literally walked away from show their respect and courtesy to me by going through all that trouble to renting these boats, getting dressed up like pirates, planning this perfectly executed operation to board our craft. So I and you should see the pictures someday. This is a
I
hoot.
can't wait.
Yeah. So we get married and we head to California. I go to the Commercial Diving Center in Wilmington, California. 6 months commercial diving course, air, mixed gas, bell, saturation. Living in uh, right across the from in Long Beach, California. 6 months later, I get out of there. I'm now a commercial diver certified. But commercial diving did uh, play. I mean, this is where something's really shifted. Um, in order to get, it's called breaking out into the commercial diving field as a diver. Even you got to pay your dues, and it's
Oh yeah.
ugly, and it takes quite a while. You have to be a tender first. In other words, you got to be the valet, and just the the
So for civilians, every diver that's over the side has to have a tender, whether it's tending his air hoses, whether it's a leash, but every helps them get dressed, undressed. But so for everybody you see over the side in the water, to my knowledge, has a tender, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to hold the diver's hose. In addition to all the other responsibilities on the deck, could be running the decompression chamber and watching the compressors and any other menial task. I mean, you are lower than whale shit in the industry. And 90% of the people that get out of commercial diving schools can't get past the tending phase. They just don't have what the industry demands, and they they wash you out pretty quick. Yeah, I mean, it's just flat out brutal. Uh, how you get there. You learn very quickly that diving is not the panacea unto itself. It is simply transportation to the job site, and you better know what you're doing when you get there, or
Yeah.
you're of
Well,
you're of no use to anybody.
yeah, I went through dive school to get into the EOD community in Panama City, and it surely is a vehicle to do your job. And as a SEAL, you're using your Emerson or Mark V as a vehicle to do your job, whether it's reconnaissance, whether it's a ship attack. But you're very true. So you better be comfortable at that diving medium to actually do your job, because it's not about the diving; it's about being comfortable diving and doing your job.
Yeah,
I don't think people understand that.
yeah. I
Diving's got
mean,
to be second nature to be able to do your job, because a lot of
yeah,
shit happens underwater and the
yeah.
conditions are always austere. You're not diving in the Caribbean where it's 82 degrees and it's limitless visibility.
Precisely, and you better know how to work with zero visibility. You better know, you know, welding and burning. You better know rigging. You better know salvage. You better know plumbing, pipes. How subsea systems work.
I
I
don't know
mean,
what a damn tagline is to put your shit on.
yeah. But so the tending for me was I went to the Gulf of Mexico to get on the parent organization of the Commercial Diving Center, which is Oceaneering International.
Yeah.
And so I lived in New Orleans on the West Bank and had this idyllic little lifestyle where I was offshore for periods of time. My wife worked downtown New Orleans. She took the ferry across the river. I kept the car in case I had to go offshore, or be somewhere. So, uh, I'm tending and hating life while I'm doing it, but I'm still, making progress, and I'm doing okay. And I get the chance, and I finally break out, way ahead of schedule. So I'm doing deep dives in the Gulf of Mexico, and I get, as luck would have it, I meet a diving supervisor that was on loan from a company in the North Sea to do a salvage job in the Gulf, where a rig had gone over, and they were salvaging it. And my company was out there doing it. I hooked up with him, and he says, if you ever get over to Europe, look me up. And I said, I'll be there next week. He goes, well, okay, your diver status, so we'll start there. So I told my wife, I said, listen, I need to go over there. You stay here in New Orleans. I don't know if it'll work or not, but I'm gonna head for Aberdeen, Scotland.
Scotland.
Yeah. And keep the house in New Orleans, keep your job, and keep your fingers crossed, because I'm going to go over there and see if I can make this thing work. And so there's Subsea International had a big offshore oil, field
Aberdeen's
contract
huge. The
there.
whole Scottish oil industry is centered around Aberdeen.
Yeah. So this is the 80s now, and it's on, and there's a lot of big happening, offshore companies. Oil is king, and there's big money involved. And so I start diving for Subsea International, and 3 months into it, one of the sat divers gets super sick, and I happen to be in the right place at the right time, and I jump into a sat cycle, and that was going to be my career for the next 18 months, 30 days on, 30 days off. I flew my wife out. She quit her job, and I'm making super good money now. I'm getting paid while I'm offshore, and I'm getting paid half rate while I'm off. So it's 30 on, 30 off. We buy a property in an island in the Orkneys. It's a island chain north of Scotland,
Mm-hmm.
and in an area called Scapa Flow, where the World War I German battle cruisers were ordered to put all their
Scuttle.
ships after, yeah, they scuttled.
Yeah,
there.
Scott Flow.
Yeah, which I
Greg
dove
likes
on.
history too, like I do.
Yeah, and so the island of Hoy is where we bought property. I bought a 200-year-old stone house. We were part owners of a sheep ranch, and I also invested in a salmon farm, which was really big over there. And I'm doing 30 days on, 30 days off. And while I'm off, I should mention that I am now drinking a lot.
What was your choice to drink over there? Tennis Lager, Guinness, Iron Brew, and vodka? What was it?
Well, if it was beer, it was
Single
probably,
malt?
yeah, if it was beer, it was probably McEwen's.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
McEwen's.
And then it was a single malt scotch if I was going to be sipping it at home. And if I was going to be pounding them down in the pub, it was a blend called Grouse, the famous Grouse. So
Well, I
Scotch.
deployed twice to Campbelltown with SEAL Team 2, so prior to it moving to Germany, so they were good days until they weren't with drinking.
Mhm. So I think from being a prolific beer drinker, which is kind of how I was the first part of my life, and I mean copious amounts of beer. Now I'm drinking copious amounts of scotch. And this is probably where the disease started to kick in. Now I'm noticing that when I wake up in the morning, if I don't have a beer, I don't feel I don't feel good because I drank so much scotch the night before. My wife starts to notice the same thing. The only saving grace is I've got to go back offshore
So you got
soon.
to be sober.
So yeah, so no matter what I do, I mean, we would literally drink up until the last minute, sleep it off on the boat or the helicopter to
Yeah.
get out to the rig again, to the set system, and that became the cycle, and it really didn't change much for 18 months. And work stayed. I mean, I stayed on top of work, okay, because you didn't have a choice. You know, you get out there, and Pure O2 is the fix all. Yeah,
And an IV,
yeah, right.
some ringers.
Yeah.
I heard that anyways.
But I'm still young and pretty resilient. So, uh, and we're making lots of money. The sheep farm is producing, the salmon farm is producing. We're banking a shitload of money. We're able to form a company over there where I'm not paying the 50% British taxes. I avoided a huge part of that. So now I have to, as much as I enjoyed that particular lifestyle, the set cycle was starting to take its toll on me physically, and my wife wanted to go back to the States, and she really wanted me to get a career to you know buy a home in the States, start a family, all of this. And she had followed my fantasy for long enough to where I owed it to her. So the idea was, let's go back to Colorado, where your parents are, and sell, let's cash out of Scotland and go back to Colorado. We'll take some time off. We'll see what's going on. And I'll join the workforce, and we'll see where it takes us. So we go out to Colorado Springs. We're living in her parents at this gigantic house that they built there. And I happened to look in the local newspaper that day, and the nation's largest home builder, U.S. Home Corporation,
Yep.
is who were defunct now, but at that time they were operating in 21 states as the nation's largest home builder doing production building. They were advertising for superintendent trainees, looking specifically for college
Military.
grad college graduates, type A personalities, and did not have a construction background. It's
Okay.
bizarre, right?
So they wanted to train you their own way.
Their own way. And it was paying at the time, I think, like 28,000 a year, which was nothing compared to what we were making in Scotland. But there was a management career path which was super lucrative. there were 300 applications for 3 positions, and I didn't, this isn't going to be a battery of tests, mostly psychological, IQ, personality tests, interviews. And long story short, I'm not sure I made the first cut, but because much later I got a phone call from them offering me the position. I think somebody else got hired ahead of me. They didn't make it for whatever reason, and they called me. So I'm in. I'm going to learn the home building industry. What this entailed was, from day one, you're in charge of a whole bunch of townhouses that are under construction. There's a 10-week production schedule. There's management development classes. You will learn construction, sales, marketing, the financials, purchasing, everything it takes to be a world-class builder. You will learn over the course of the next few years. You'll get promoted regularly if your production is up and your costs are down. I couldn't have asked for anything better. This was a Navy SEAL hungry for a new career where all I had to do was follow the numbers. I had a phone and a big stick. And it's all I needed to build all these houses on time, on schedule, under budget. And I was obsessed with success at that point in time. I moved up through the ranks quickly from superintendent trainee to superintendent to lead superintendent to construction manager, put into cross training where I was going to learn purchasing, accounting, sales. The goal was to become a division manager. And now you're talking $500,000 a year with a company car and expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And I was super, super close to getting that. I got transferred to Denver to the last big project to check all my boxes. And as the construction manager of this place, and I've completed cross training, the next step is division executive vice president.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been at it for 3 years now, and I've moved up with lightning speed to where I needed to be. We're married. My wife is pregnant, and I'm assigned to this new gigantic condo development. And they sent me a superintendent to work under me, along with another, bunch of staff members. And she's a drop dead, gorgeous single woman who had come up through the system and was on her way to the top also. We have an affair. She is my Bathsheba. I am obsessed with this woman. The sex is better than any I've had in my life. And I stopped going home. I have a newborn and a wife and a career pattern that is tailor-made. And I stopped going home because I'm drinking a lot. And now I think I'm drinking a lot to cover up some of these horrific emotions that I'm going through, where I'm obsessed with this other woman and I'm literally abandoning my wife and new daughter. And there was no way to spin that other than to now I'm actually covering up all these rushes of emotion with drinking. And drinking is now affecting my work. I am falling down in a lot of different areas. And I do not get the promotion on schedule. In fact, I'm told that I'm now essentially stuck. I can continue running that project with no hope, no immediate hope for advancement, or I can go someplace else. And I said, fuck it, I'll go somewhere else. I mean,
was this the result of your drinking or the affair?
It was a result of the drinking. the affair factored in to where I'm
Mhm.
reckless and I'm not paying attention to work. I'm just not. I mean,
I hear
that
you.
project was that project went unsupervised. I mean, just complete negligence on my part. I mean, I was taking speed to keep up the energy levels of this work all day, drink and screw all night, go back and do it again, juggling what's left of a marriage and a newborn with the new obsession, which was more of a sexual, you know, parade. And things are things are spinning out of control with a quickness. And my the division president that I reported to started to see it. All the all the metrics of good performance started to fall by the wayside. And I was summarily told, you're not on the same track that you were before. You're stuck where you are. You're going to be stuck where you are, and your choice is to go somewhere else or to just finish out this project. So I had failed miserably at that endeavor after all that time, and it was my own doing. It's like you drank yourself out of that mess. uh, so what do we do now? I'm leaving my wife. I will be with this other woman. She sells a condo that we had been shacked up in, and she goes, "We can go anywhere we want." I made all this money on the condo, and I said, "I want to go back to Scotland. I want to be back there. I want to get away from all this." And she goes, "Okay, I'll take you to Scotland." So we went, and we backpacked through the Highlands for 2 or 3 months, I guess, drinking, 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 drinking. We go back to the island of Hoy. I wanted to show her where I used to live, and we drank and drank and drank, and now she starts to see that I'm drinking more than she
Her.
likes. Yeah, and she could keep up. And I mean, I'm pissing the bed in a high end bed and breakfast is how much I'm drinking at night. And it's like enough already. After several months of partying our way across Scotland, it was literally time to go back to the States. Money was starting to run out, and time to make another move. And I said, let's go to Florida, where I'm going to get back in the home building business because there's a lot of activity going on.
Mhm.
And she goes, no, no, because I don't trust you going to Florida.
Excuse me.
I don't trust you there. I want to go to Virginia Beach because my sister is there. And if anything goes sideways, at least I've got kind of a safety net there. I said, Virginia Beach, okay, let's go there. We get to Virginia Beach and we buy a car and we're staying at her sister's house in Chesapeake. And I said to her, her sister's a realtor. I said, who's the biggest builder in this area? And she
RJ
says, well, it's
Moore.
RG Moore. I said, no kidding. I should probably give him a resume. I put a resume together. I give it to RG Moore's office. A guy named Jack Ainsley, who was RG Moore's number two, calls me in, hires me on the spot. I'm going to be the operations manager for RG Moore. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Talk about landing on your feet. Here we are coming back almost broke from Scotland. And I'm I'm the number three guy and the biggest builder in Tidewater. And it's because of my experience with US Home. And prior to my interview with RG Moore, I had got the division president to lie for me, saying, listen, I'll help you out as much as I can. There's no sweat off me. I'll tell the guy you did a great job. And so I had a great reference coming from US Home Corporation. And that with my, the interview, I'm literally hired. I go out and get a house in Sandbridge and company car.
I
And
have a
we start,
question for you. Were
yeah,
you part of the building development over in Ocean Lakes that had a class action lawsuit against it with the slabs that were cracking?
Ocean Lakes doesn't ring a bell. I don't think it
It's
was
over
one
by
of the,
Dam Neck.
yeah, I don't know if it was one of the subdivisions that, it wasn't one when I was there.
I'm joking, dude.
No,
But it was a
well,
big deal.
well, R.G. Moore had enough lawsuits that
Yeah.
ensued later. He was an absolute maverick. Um, so I loved being back in Virginia Beach. I loved living in
Mhm.
Sandbridge. I loved going, getting up, living on the beach. Lived oceanfront, Sandbridge, and then driving into Virginia Beach to work. And we had subdivisions all over Virginia Beach. And one of the houses that we built was Donnie Sayer lived in it, and I
Yeah.
ran it. I ran into him, and we hooked up. He's now a chief with SEAL Team 6 at that time, and we start hanging out together. And I start meeting all the SEAL Team 6 guys, some of which I'd gone through buds with, and it was like, wow, this is really fun.
Go hang out at the Raven.
You know, I don't know the Raven.
Back in the day, it was all where the Mob 6 guys hung out in Virginia Beach.
So Donnie Sayer was actually pretty conservative, and mainly, his wife Robin, he worked at a bank, and he was a real straight shooter. So we're building houses all over Virginia Beach, and life is good. But I had the urge to get up the corporate ladder again. And oh, incidentally, I'm drinking just as much as I was before, but the lifestyle there was somehow conducive to where I was managing it what I thought a little bit better. And yeah, I was hungover lots and lots of mornings, but still performed. What I did was I implemented U.S. home ideologies into R.G. Moore's building, which was simply transplanting all the
SOPs.
yeah, the SOPs and the analytics of production building, and they thought I was God's gift to their company. And all I did was transpose everything that I'd already learned, and production scheduling and tracking. But I was missing. So long story short, I put on some resumes, and uh, one of the biggest builders in the Northeast, soon to be in the whole country, was Hovnanian Enterprises, based in Red Bank, New Jersey.
Hmm.
I, I sent them a resume. They called me up, flew me up for an interview. I get hired. Big increase in salary, company car, beautiful office, and a big project outside of Princeton, New Jersey that I'm going to be responsible for. So I'm now married to the second woman, incidentally, if I hadn't caught up with that. And she's working for a builder in Virginia Beach. And I told, and she's training horses. She was an equestrian. And I said, let me go up there first and, get the lay of the land. I'll get a house, and I'll get everything sorted out. So I go up to New Jersey. The first thing I do is I go into Manhattan and start partying. And
Good
it
choice
was,
if you're going to drink.
yeah, in the 80s. And I encountered an energy level and a
Oh, I'm
party
from New York, brother.
environment
I get it.
second to none. It's like, are you kidding me? This is Disneyland for me. So I had to go. I settled in. I got a house in Red Bank, New Jersey. I'm now a project director for Hovnanian. Uh, this is suit and tie at the office. Blazers went out in the field, company car, and I love New Jersey. Genuine people. You got all these different lifestyles and ethnic groups, and it was just genuine, just fun and great company, super good money. And I'm drinking a lot all over again. And it's not yet affecting performance, but it's getting pretty close. The good news is Hovnanian Enterprises is encouraging their people to further their education. As long as you maintain a 3.0 GPA, they'll pay for whatever schools you want to go to. If you want a BA, they'll put you through college. If you want to do graduate work, and a lot of our guys had gone to graduate school, even law school, got their, engineering degree, et cetera. And the company was paying for it. So I said, all right. And I want to get an MBA. So I get accepted to NYU, and 3 nights a week for the next 18 months, I'm taking the train into Manhattan to go to graduate school at NYU to get my MBA. And I did. And I continued to build houses in Princeton and Lawrenceville for Hovnanian Enterprises. And I'm drinking probably more than ever now, because if the story's going to be complete, you should know that when I would go into Manhattan from Friday classes, I would then stay all weekend and just, drink myself stupid. And had an affair with a girl that lived in New York City, and was cheating on my second wife now. And my performance started to falter at work. Now I am accepting money for contracts with big subcontractors, a la mafia connected subcontractors, that in order to get a big plumbing contract, for example, for 200 townhouses, they will give me under the table $50,000. And this was easy money that I couldn't ignore. And this will also fuel my lifestyle, which is now a little more grandiose. And
you're lucky you didn't get whacked.
Yeah. Well, I don't see anything wrong with this, because everybody's doing it.
Of course.
Yeah. And not only were they the best plumbing contractors in New Jersey, but they're giving me all this extra cash just to get the contract. So this is like a win-win, right? And it just seems to me like I was justifying illicit behaviors because it was a cultural imperative, or everybody else was doing it, or any way that I could spin it in my mind, knowing that I am not only breaking the law, but I am violating the trust of the company that I work for, et cetera, and none of that bothered me. Whether or not my morals had gone down the toilet, or whether it was just the alcohol causing me to exercise bad judgment, it almost matters not. It certainly was a combination of all of that. But I'm now a untrustworthy person. I'm not doing as good as I could. I'm stealing and I'm cheating, and I'm ignoring all the areas of responsibility that I had put into place over the previous,
You were not even close to a bottom then. You were just rolling along with this cycle of cash and debauchery and alcoholism, and nobody took you aside that cared about you and say, "Hey, dude, what the fuck are you doing?"
Not even close, because it was the 80s in the housing boom. And my story will include getting fired from Hovnanian Enterprises, and 1 week later getting hired as the vice president of construction for another huge builder in New Jersey. Why? Because my resume warranted it, and I interview in such a way that I can convince you that I'm your guy, and I could spin the references by people that I knew at Hovnanian Enterprises to where the package was complete. So there was no real fallout. It's like,
had you been incurring any health issues at this point, Craig?
Zero. I'm not gaining weight. I'm not looking like shit. I'm dressing to the nines every day, and I'm hitting the lick mostly during the daytime. It was the night where
you had mentioned speed earlier in the conversation. Were drugs ever part of your issue? I know cocaine in the 80s was big in New York.
Yeah, and I was given uh, ounces and ounces of cocaine for free from these different contractors as perks for giving contracts, and I would give most of it away. Yeah, I would do cocaine uh, from time to time, but alcohol was always my go-to
I hear you.
substance. Cocaine was a way to
Stay up longer to
you know
drink.
stay up longer to drink, and I could actually jog a little further too. I mean, heart attack city maybe, but I could jog better in the afternoons if I do a bump or two. But no, it never dominated my you know I did not become addicted to any drugs. It was recreational use. Fortunately, I dodged that bullet. Um, so I'm now the vice president of another home building company in New Jersey, and these are Hasidic Jews that own the company, and they're absolute brilliant businessmen. And I loved working for them because I could go to them with personal problems, and they would have answers that came from a deep-seated logic that could have been a function of their religion or and the ancient wisdoms, or whether they were just super smart guys. I'm not sure. But in any case, I loved partnering with them. Uh, I did a good job for the company, but I was drinking and whoring uh, at night, just almost out of control now. And it's now towards the end of the 80s, and I want to leave New Jersey. It's it's almost like the walls were closing in. I needed a paradigm shift in my environment. My second wife is now estranged from me. She's having an affair with some other builder in a different part of New Jersey, and I had ignored her and her needs. Um, she was an equestrian, and I tell everybody that I left my first wife for my second wife, and my second wife left me for a horse, which is almost true because she she preferred the equestrian lifestyle much more to almost anything else, and she was one of those people that followed her dreams too. So,
Was there any
uh,
connectivity with your child during these years?
oh no, I should have mentioned. Shortly after my wife and I split, my first wife and had the baby, she she falls in love with and gets pregnant by a guy older than her in Colorado Springs, and she approaches me with the idea, um, I'm getting remarried, and I want my new husband to adopt our daughter. Do you have a problem with that? And I didn't. I had no problem with that. In fact, it was a financial and an emotional reprieve, or if not release. In other words, I can walk away from all of this.
Any regrets later
That's
in
how
life
my
with that decision?
no, there weren't. It's how I shut doors to protect whatever misbehaviors I'm involved with. I can maybe not even justify it, but I can certainly deflect it to the extent that, okay, uh, that was your idea, right? You're the one that got remarried. You're the one that wanted to have your new husband adopt our daughter, and I agreed. So that makes me the good guy, but also lets me off the hook.
Okay, fair enough.
And that's the way it was. She grew up uh, in that other family, you know. And I head back to San Francisco. I get a job with a builder in California, repeating the same patterns: resume, interview, references. The housing market is still good. I'm still good. I pulled it off. Company car, office, building houses, just geographical transplant, still drinking way too much. Now I'm drinking the minute I get off work until I fall asleep at night, and I get up, repeat, repeat. This is Northern California, 1989. This is when the earthquake hit San Francisco during the World Series game of the
Yep.
Giants and the A's.
Dodgers. Oh, yeah, Dodgers and Yankees. Correct?
No, Giants
Because
and A's.
A's, that's right. Yeah, the Dodgers knocked the Mets out. I remember sitting
Yeah.
at Bud's watching that game at a sports bar. Like the Mets were heavily favored and disaster. I'm sure I drank over it.
Yeah. So we're drinking, and I'm saving a bunch of money. I'm seeing my father, who's uh, completely retired now, living with, guess who? The wife of his best friend, who married her again.
Ugh.
They're living in Marin County. I'm spending my weekends with them. I'm single now, and I'm drinking with them on weekends in the wine country of Northern California, and they don't see yet how bad it's become, because it looks like it's party time for the weekend only. They don't know what I'm doing during the week. They think I'm a success and, you know, able to leave one state, move to another, our home state, and have such a lucrative career all over again. I look the part, I act the part. Secretly, I'm now hopelessly alcoholic, and my performance at that job continues to falter also. It's inevitable that this cycle does not keep repeating itself, because none of the ingredients were changing whatsoever. While there, it's become now clear to myself and others that drinking is now interfering with everything else. And I'm invited to my first AA meeting by my half brother, who's a dentist, and one of my childhood, you know, idols or mentors, um, baseball pitcher, University of California, Berkeley, uh, married a lawyer, successful dental practice, alcoholic drug addict, sober, now long distance runner. He tells me, you need to come to an AA meeting with me. And he takes me, and then he takes me to another one. And it doesn't really connect.
Did you pick up a white
It's all
chip in the
foreign
first
to me.
one?
Oh, no, 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 no.
Okay.
I don't even remember that. I don't remember that part of the drill. I just remember that I was a stranger in that place, and it was spooky. I was so far removed from reality or accepting the need for substantial help that I ignored all of that. In fact, what I needed to do was get out from under the scrutiny of all of this. And I had saved enough money from my last job and living kind of austere without any family responsibilities. I wanted to pull the plug and get out of the place. I remember going to my father's house, and we're drinking one afternoon, and it was Sunday afternoon, and I keep drinking, and he says, uh, "You're, you've told me your story, and I know you have to work tomorrow, and you can't stop drinking." He goes, "Craig, as far as I can tell, you're a liar, a thief, and a drunk." And caught me off guard, and it didn't hurt my feelings, nor was I surprised. It registered, and I thought, wow, I am, but I don't think I really give a shit. And that was a moment in time where I said, okay, I'm not going to pretend any of this anymore. I'm going to walk away from all of it. And what I did was I bought a ticket to Key West, for the sole purpose of drinking. I'm going to go there and drink. That's all I'm going to do. And I did. And I got drunk and stayed drunk in Key West for months and months. This was still back in the day when Key West was paradise, and you could actually live that kind of a sloppy lifestyle without much scrutiny, and even join the ranks of the other pirate slash drunks in that environment. And I said, well, I'm home. I am finally home. This is the lifestyle that agrees with me. And all other pretenses are now abandoned. This is what I am. I'm a Key West drunk. Whatever I used to be doesn't matter, because I'm now in the company of all these others that had similar stories, success stories, and it's the end of the road. We're all here, and this is what we do. And I made that work in a very bizarre kind of way, like was possible back then. And through different iterations of getting in and out of trouble with the law and finances and
Were you working
relationships,
at
and
this time, or were you just residual income?
I did. I I I, I went there with a certain amount of money, and I made it last quite a while. And then I lived so far off the grid that um, I didn't really need to. I had bought a 41-foot Morgan catch when I first got there, because I knew for sure that I wasn't going to be able to pay rent, forever. And I damn sure wasn't going to be able to buy a house. So I bought the sailboat. One is a guaranteed place to live, but also I wanted to sail. It's just one of the few things that you can do there, you know, 365 days a year. So I had that going for me. And so, little by little, I ran out of money, but I had a place to live, i.e. the sailboat. And, I would go to the VA and, try to get help from time to time. And I was able to detox in the Miami VA and then get sober for a little while. And I was in and out of the AA room, but never really fully adopted it. But to answer your question about work, so I'm in Key West for a grand total of 10 years. And in that time, I was sober on and off for perhaps half of that time. Good sobriety followed by binges that would last a year at a time. For pocket money early on, I was diving for sand dollars to sell to the gift stores with a guy that had a business set up to do just that, tropical fish. I dove for Mel Fisher, getting emeralds where the Etosha wreck had been, vacuuming the bottom for, sucking it up, sifting through the sand on the boat, getting emeralds, pocketing emeralds. I sobered up for a year and became the director of a Wyland gallery, very lucrative position, the number one marine artist in the world. The flagship gallery was in Key West, and I'm the director of the gallery. I got 50 people working for me, and we led the company in sales through my leadership. And I was sober, and I was hitting a lick all over again. Had a girlfriend, had a nice house, and drank myself right out of that. It was just one of those things.
You're very
Again,
consistent with that model.
Totally. Let's build it up. We can still do this
and burn it down.
Okay, and burn it down, because it's. Let's don't forget, you drink. That's what you do. You drink, and the consequences be damned. You'll bounce back again. Let's drink again. And I could not change that pattern to save my life. And it defied logic. It totally did, until I
It
almost
doesn't defy
died.
logic. I went to a meeting this morning. You hear people share about the same thing. And this is typical alcoholic stuff. In the
In my
alcoholic
mind,
frame, it doesn't defy logic.
Mhm. So I wanted to fast forward a little bit and include the alcohol thing a little more without meandering the story too much. But the drinking in Key West became so problematic that now I'm completely dysfunctional, and I can't work anywhere, nor do I want to. And I'm drinking around the clock. I have to
I have
service the
a
beast.
question. So always in AA here, I've never gone out. I've got, I one trip wonder. That's just because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I picked up the white chip. Was it worse every time you went out drinking? Because you always hear that. Well, I was sober for 2 years, and then I went back to drinking, and it was worse than before I stopped drinking. Does that ring true with you and your story?
In my case, it's totally true, and it was predictable that the relapse was going to be longer and worse, worse physically, uh, financially, legally. It was always worse and lasted longer. Um, I hit bottom harder every time, and yet the pattern would continue. Finally, I got checked into a detox there in Key West, and then into a short treatment program where a VA advocate came and saw me and said, I can get you into a VA sponsored program in Miami, inpatient, if you want to go. And I said, I'll go. So I
What
went
year
up to
was
the
this?
Miami. It was this is now like 2006,
Roger that.
2006. And I'm in a VA inpatient program, and there isn't anything else going on in my life. I have now burned through, you know, all my assets, except for the sailboat, the one thing
Which you just
that I
sold
held on to.
recently.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
After all those years.
Mhm.
Um, while I'm in the rehab in Miami, I recognize I really can't go back to Key West for anything. I've got to make a stand up here somewhere. So I get into a VA sponsored apartment in Fort Lauderdale, which I liked right away. Being in Fort Lauderdale, and it had a clear. I'm sober now, and I'm going to AA meetings, and I realize there's life after drinking,
Did you have a sponsor
and
then?
and yeah, I do, and I'm convinced that I can remake myself all over again as
I'm
long as
sure
I
you
can stay
can.
sober. Yeah, and I go to work uh, for a timeshare company, and I'm knocking it out of the park. And because it was fast money, and I had the gift of gab back then, and I could structure financial deals on the fly to where it made sense to the people in front of me, and I was making money hand over fist. And I thought, okay, here I'm back, I'm back, and recouped. Got a new car, nice place to live, and you can guess what happened next, right? Okay,
Well, if
yeah.
history
So,
is an indicator of your future, you found a
so
girlfriend,
we got so
you
we got
destroyed that, you
so
lost everything, and you went to
yeah,
rehab again.
I did indeed. And this time it was a 30-day program,
Mhm.
and it was $1,000 a day that the county paid for.
Mhm.
And I'm in there with Daryl Strawberry, the baseball player,
Oh yeah, we
and
love Daryl.
we become great friends, are to this day. And I get out of there, and I'm sober, and my father dies and leaves me a chunk of money, my sister and I. And it's now 2007. The housing bubble has burst.
Yes,
The
7 through
recession
10.
is in Yeah, the recession is in
So you went
full
and bought
panic
distressed
mode.
assets, I'm hoping?
I totally did. I totally did. If I
Good
learned
for you.
anything at
You're
the
not a
Stern,
dumb man,
if
Craig.
I learned if I learned anything at the Stern Business School, and particularly from my Hasidic mentors, is with the sheep are going this way, you go the other way. And everybody's abandoning their mortgages. Property values are in the
Plummeting.
cellar. They're plummeting, and people are and I'm looking at the big picture because I'm sober now, and I've got all this money that I can invest or squander. And I think, okay, this time we're not going to squander it. We're going to invest it. And it's like, why do these people not see that this is all temporary? This is transitory. Why do you
Of course
walk
it is.
away from a mortgage? Why do you walk away from a mortgage that you've been paying for 10 years and you love your house? You walk away from it because what? Somebody's telling you the property values are going down? This is fucking nuts. I will make a move on this with all this cash that I've got, and it got hooked up with a bank with all the properties that had gone into foreclosure, and I cherry picked the ones with the highest upside, and bought four sweet ass properties at a fire sale, uh, and became a property owner, and a real estate investor, literally overnight, because I was sober this time. And my father's passing, gave me that segue. So there I was, and now I'm. So here's an important part of the story. I'm furnishing my new house, and I'm doing a lot of shopping at this one big box store, getting incidentals.
And
And
you met
there's a
you
cashier
met a
standing.
girl.
Yeah,
Is that what happened?
the cashier. Yeah, the cashier.
Of course.
I,
And then
I'm
you
on
bought
the
a new
I'm, I'm
car.
on the I'm on the other side of the room, and I see the smile, and it floored me. And I'm not looking for any relationship at this point. I am focused on this business thing, and I'm going to get my house decorated, and I'm going to make more money, and I'm going to invest more. And it's on. It's on. And I introduced myself to this just angel, and she's from Peru, doesn't speak English that well. And I invite her to my house because I want, for lunch, and let's go fishing off my dock in the back. I was on a canal, my new house. And she comes over, and I'm enchanted with her. And lunch is over, and I basically say, I don't want you to leave. And she goes, well, I have to go home and get some things. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, yeah, how lucky am I? This gorgeous thing. And who cares that she's a cashier at a big box store? And she goes, well, I got to go home. And I said, I want to ride with you. She goes, I'll come back. I go, no, no, I want to ride with you. So we get in her car, and we drive to this gorgeous fucking condo on the beach. And I'm saying, this is your place? She goes, yeah. I said, you're a cashier? She goes, oh, I work there. She goes, I don't work, but that's my weekends because I want to learn better English. Seriously? You took a job at this place to learn better English? She goes, yeah, I own this condo, and I own three other properties that I rent. And I'm from Peru, and I used to be a banker. I said, are you kidding me? This She's got deep pockets, owns property. She's gorgeous, and she's got a place on the beach, and she likes me. And I said, well, I just invested in a bunch of property too. Why don't we and we're a couple literally overnight. And that was 18 years ago. We're still together. We're still doing properties.
Yeah, I know.
Now we're doing properties. Now we're doing properties for Peruvian investors because we got our shit together. And now I've gone out two different times. Now I'm supposed to be sober. By rights, I should be sober 15 some years. And I did it in 3-year increments, then 5, soon to be
The
6
installment
years
plan.
sober. Yeah, the installment plan for sure. So it's coming up on 6 years, and God willing, there is no more relapse in the cards. Uh, Too old, too wise, too comfortable. uh,
Too tired.
too embedded in too embedded in SEALs and recovery. Um,
Oh, I don't
in
mind.
addition to my
I don't see
outside,
you going out. So did you go? You went out while you were with her.
yes, twice.
What was that like, and what was different that she stayed with you?
She trusted the fact that I was an alcoholic that would eventually see the light, and she rode herd on me to where the relapse was not going to get too far out of control. I mean, she just
That's
monitored
good.
me to the extent where, yeah, I mean, just
Well,
snatched
you
me
at
up,
that point
put
you
me
weren't
to
left to your own devices. You had a partner that actually cared about your health.
get in the fucking car. We're going to the detox in Miami, to the VA hospital. I mean, there's no okay, but I need beer for the way. Okay, whatever. Just get in the car. So I would drink all the way up to the time I walked into the place, and then come out sober. You know, typically 10 days later. It took me longer to detox than most. So after 5 years of sobriety, I went drinking in the Keys one last time. She drove down, grabbed me, put me in the car, put me in detox. And that was
God bless her.
April 27th, April 27th, 2018, 6 years ago next month.
It's great.
And
So what is different about this 7 years as opposed to your previous iterations of maintaining a sober lifestyle?
well, to frame that a little bit better is 5 years sober, I had what you might hear in the rooms is an emotional upset where she pissed me off. I felt certain amount of disrespect, if you will, and drank at her while I was in the Keys, thinking nothing other than uh, fuck all this. I'm gonna go sideways for whatever reason. Not particularly to self-destruct, just no good reason other than I'm still an alcoholic.
Was it key
She
was it
snatched
trigger
me
for
up.
this and was it trigger for this, a simmering resentment type of thing, or was it just an argument that got out of control that you said, "You push the fucking button"?
Good
Because I
question.
think it's
It had
important to talk
simmered.
about that in recovery. What are the triggers, how to mitigate them, and how to move through it?
It was a simmer. It was you don't appreciate me. It was the woe is me. The ingredients of a resentment. Um, don't you know who I am? I mean, immature, illogical pushbacks on my part that was looking for an excuse. And I think I took my eye off the ball clearly from any kind of a program. And the default mechanism for me was uh, to pick up a drink. And it's like, damn the torpedoes. That's
So
it.
some of the things what you say is just so important about recovery, brother, and the fact that is in real recovery, you know what they say about relapses, they don't happen overnight. With real
Mhm.
recovery, a person that is really working a program sees these triggers, sees a trend, and is able to stop it by their behavior. Go to another meeting, talk to your sponsor, clergy, clinician, whatever. But yeah, it's very interesting. What you're talking about, and actually what leads to going out and for in SEAL terms to debrief that and do a murder board of what was the that you could articulate what had happened now is a sentiment with your recovery to understand what actually happened. So bravo to you.
Mhm. Yes, so God gives us everything we need to know Him and to know ourselves and to know the right path if we tap into it. He sent me an angel. There's no doubt about it. It was me recognizing that that was Him working through someone else for me. When I finally started to appreciate that, tap into that particular resource, some of the burden was lifted off of me, I guess, or was a swim buddy sharing the load, whatever you will. And just that depth of love and probably acceptance for the first time ever in my case was proof positive that there really can be a quality of life that I that I could have as long as I did certain things. And this is where she says, you're going to need to stay connected with AA, or you're not going to have me. It wasn't an ultimatum; it was a formula that she recognized, and I took her at her word, and I engaged with AA on the outside here, sponsored people, worked the steps more than once, and got into physical fitness and just watched my attitude as best I could, um, endeavoring to be of service to others, honoring the fact that people trust us with their money, um, going out of my way to do the next right thing for our contractors, um, being honest at presentations I do with the city and the, governmental agencies that we need to, you know, greenlight our stuff. And it's a package that has been a blessing, these past 6 years, where it all finally did gel after all that time and all those misfires and failed missions. It was one of these things that finally gelled, and I attribute it solely to a life of sobriety, interfacing with a higher power, um, being of service to others, not picking up a drink, recognizing my weaknesses, and accepting them, and then moving around them. And was delighted to discover Seals in Recovery when I did by picking up a Blast magazine, seeing the ad, reaching out to it, connecting, getting onto the thread, becoming part of the group, and that was something like 6 months ago, and it has been the absolute missing ingredient to what I would now consider just the complete package in a program that I thoroughly enjoy now. Um, AA was one dimensional for me. With Seals in Recovery, it's two dimensional all over again. There's a brotherhood. There's a level of trust and love that I have, with the members. Um, I mean, I would take a bullet for anyone in the group, even though I would just soon kick one or two of their asses at the same time. Um, it is an environment that I cherish and look forward to further involvement with, and only hope that what I've learned over all these, episodes of my life, I could impart something at some point in time that will helpfully move the needle. And I was hoping that from this podcast, I would steer clear of anything that resembled me rambling about my own story or
No, this is your story,
successes,
brother.
failures. And I wanted it to at least impart one thing that would move the needle, whereby at least one person could see that, yeah, if that dumb shit could end up like that by doing that, then I'll try it too, maybe decades sooner than he did, so I can get there. And that's my hope and prayer, uh, particularly for our new guys, that they can get this much sooner than I ever did.
Well, you displayed, an attitude of hope because you never gave up, and that's a testament to you and your drive. It just, in our lives, we just, for reasons unknown to us at the time, you don't know what you're doing until you really get deep and figure out. That's why I asked the questions about the alcoholism in your house, and you know being able to drink at an early age and having the bandwidth to do whatever you want. It all plays into what we tolerate and what we do as an adult. And I I know for a fact, and I think we'll have him on, our friend from Minnesota, that you had a huge impact. That got out of rehab, and he didn't know what to do until we got on the phone with him for hour and a half, and we told him what time it is, and you were very, very important talking to him as far as getting a program together, and it worked. The guy's still sober, so you moved the needle in a lot of ways. I went to a meeting years ago in Washington, and you talked about where you are now and ability to figure things out sober and get ahead. And the share went like this. The guy said, out of 100% of the things I've achieved in sobriety, if I lose 80% of them, I got 20% left. If I am sober, I have a shot at getting that other 80% back. If we drink, we don't. All of what you said is gone. The trust with people's money, with contractors, with legal documents, with briefing the city, with driving sober, with making conscious decisions in chaos. All of that shit's gone, brother, if we're drinking. I know that. I burn my shit down, too. And we'll get to that in some podcast. But as far as you moving the needle, you've done that. You've done it internally, logistically, and mechanically within Seals and Recover, and emotionally with how you lead meetings and bring stuff to light. So it's the question of moving the needle. That's been done. I'm very excited to where this leads in the future. And you're part of the team, and you're a valued part. 6 months seems like 6 years because you've helped so much.
If you only knew how much you guys have helped me. Therein lies the beauty of this program. There is a direct correlation with what we give and what we get. And the win-win environment is the best of all. And we have it. And I cherish that.
Yeah. No, it's a privilege to have you on here, brother. And you know how much I love you and how much we talk offline. And you're also one of my mentors. I mean, I do what I do for a living, but you're a business person who I could lean on. And, you soften the edges with some of our internal strife, which Seals and Recovery is its own world in itself, because there's a bunch of Class A individuals that are meat eaters, and we all have our opinions and egos. So it's it's a work in progress, and I'm happy to say what we're going to do next, I think, Craig, is get a body count. I mean, we're getting to a point where we've had a lot of people get sober within Seals and Recovery. Me and you and Evan and some of the other older guys have come through the civilian pipeline, but we have quite a bit of guys that have gotten actually sober starting with us. So we're going to put that head count together for our meeting, our very important meeting next week, because we have measurables, which is important, because some of these programs for guys sent into rehab, there's no measurables because they don't know what happens after rehab, after IOP, if they're out experimenting. We actually have a measurable, system if they're telling the truth about their sobriety. So I'm anxious to get those internal numbers about folks that have gotten sober within Seals and Recovery.
Yeah, also capturing those coming out of, right now we've got 2 brothers in treatment that we put in treatment coming out of Warrior's Heart that we'll need to shepherd them. Yeah,
sounds good. I think we're going to be good, and you help with the new webpage, and there's some procedures and principles for the new guys getting on board, and we're doing a good job. I think we've come a long way, since you've came on board. I just want to thank you greatly from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
All right. Until next week, Craig, thanks, brother. I'll talk to you later offline. And for those who are watching, thank you for letting us take some of your time and watching Seals and Recovery.